All right, now everyone on your feet for Todd Belfer.
You're too funny.
All right. So this is Todd. He's the managing partner for Canal Partners. And we're super excited because I personally hate the conversation that there's no capital in Arizona. So I love bringing our wonderful venture partners on stage with us to kind of talk through all the ups and downs of what that is. But Todd in particular has a very deep entrepreneurial past and still has led into his future. So we're going to kind of talk through what all of those different pieces are today and just dive into who is Todd. So awesome. One of the, let's kind of go back a little bit in time, before Canal Partners. What was your very first entrepreneurial venture?
Well, first, thanks for having me. You're right, you got to hold this close.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank God I brushed my teeth. Well, in college I started a business. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Can I go back to
there,
college?
Yeah. Let's go to college. Unless you had lemonade stands, then we can go back there too.
What's that?
Unless you had a lemonade stand, then go back there too.
I'm going back to college, which was like 5 years ago I graduated. Just kidding. So in college I was in a fraternity, a large fraternity, and I wanted to make money. I was always looking to make money. The blackjack tables in my apartment, had a short shelf life. So my father, actually, who's out in the audience, knew a guy who ran junkets to Laughlin. And I said, well, how about we run buses from the fraternity houses and sorority houses to Laughlin, and the casinos will pay me for each person. So we actually did that for, we did it for a month, and then the casinos realized everybody was underage and had fake IDs, and they kind of squashed that. But I think that was the first real business that I started.
How did you, what inspired you to even do that? What made you say that, yeah, I think I'll be an entrepreneur?
I don't know. I just always enjoy thinking of starting like a business, like the creativity part, coming up with ideas, solving problems, and making money is a nice byproduct too. But I don't know. I think I became an entrepreneur out of college because I was unemployable. Probably. Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
I did have a W-2 job for a quick stint at a real estate company in Scottsdale, and I just didn't like taking direction, and I sound like a kid. I didn't like taking direction and working under structure and for having certain hours, and I just didn't really enjoy it. So I quit there after months, not even a year, and started my first company after that, which was called Preferred Tax Liens, and we syndicated buying tax liens from the state of Arizona from people that didn't pay their...
Why did you get started in that?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I drank a lot since then. I don't remember why I started that, but I had a partner. We started it, and got money from doctors, lawyers, professionals in town to invest with us. We'd go out to the auctions and to the state and buy the tax liens, manage that process, and took a fee for doing it, and was very successful for a while until it got a little too competitive, and the interest rates came down from 16 to 10, 11, 12, and it just didn't make sense.
And then I don't know if everyone knows this, but Todd actually was the founder of Raw Sushi, which is kind of a delicious place in town.
Yeah, co-founder. Yeah, two other founders, but yeah. So that was an interesting story, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I do. Let's go.
So we had a restaurant there called Zanzibar, which was like a European Mediterranean type restaurant, and it lasted 8 months. And Keith, you remember Zanzibar? And didn't work. We had this big chef from Spago's, and after 8 months we closed it. So we're dark in this restaurant, but a great location in Scottsdale. And we're like, so we went out for beers one night, and we went over to Kyoto's, me and my two partners, and we're like just sitting around going, shall we just sell the lease and try to get some money back? And I think we got drunk enough where we said, let's do a rock and roll sushi bar. This is in 1994 5, I think. So the next day we're like, all right, let's do it. And we like drove around town looking for a sushi chef, trying to figure out a name, design, colors, and just put it all together within 90 days. And I think we were open within 4 or 5 months.
That's awesome when you come home from a night of fun and you come out with a business idea that actually works. So what was kind of what do you think made the difference between Zanzibar and Raw in their success?
There was not a huge market at the time for Zanzibar. White tablecloth, higher check average in that part of town. And when we looked at what could we do there and came up with this rock and roll sushi concept, at the time, I mean now there's a gazillion rock and roll sushi bars, but at the time in the early 90s, there was really, the competition was Kyoto's, Ayako's, more traditional Japanese restaurants, and what we Americanized sushi is like we like to call it.
Yeah.
So we brought the music, the good-looking staff, the fun. We had things like safe sushi and handed out condoms, to our customers. And we did some kind of stuff on the edge, and we pushed it, and it was successful. We built 4 stores, 5 stores, and then sold it.
I think edgy is starting to be a trend in your entrepreneurial ventures. I love it. You started a nutritional supplements company, right?
Yeah, so we bought an herbal tea company in 1993, and then turned it into a sports nutrition company. So we were selling herbal teas. I heard the tea guy here. We were selling detox teas back in the early 90s to health food stores, co-ops, GNCs of the world. And then we took that and created a sports nutrition line and invented some pretty cool stuff out in the marketplace and grew that from $2 million in sales to like 10, and then sold it.
So I know we haven't gone through all of the ventures that you have created or been a part of, but which one was your favorite?
Probably NetTime Solutions, because we were dead 15 times in 18 years. We died. And we just kept going and kept going and kept trying to figure it out, and ran out of money and couldn't make payroll, and the software wouldn't work. And
wow, that sounds like so much fun.
It's pretty much like every company we have. But, we just kept going. We just kept going, and the tenacity of my co-founder and the team and the employees, they had no quit in them. And we just kept going, and, eventually we sold it and did really well on it. And now I think there's over 1 million people using the software every day. It's owned by Paychex now. And it was I'll tell you, it was a situation where there was no way we were going to make it, because we were doing wind down plans every year. How are we going to wind this down? How are we going to wind it down? And we just kept going and just eventually, became successful.
Founders.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I love that that's your favorite, because I think that speaks to what you really need to be in a founder. You have to kind of love the painful points as well as the glory points. What was your the one that you wish that you never started?
Boy, I don't know. The one that I wish I never started. Well, I bought a company. We bought a company called Lemos.com, and at the time we were doing about $2 million in revenue, and grew it to about $8 or $9 million in revenue. And then this little company came along in San Francisco. I don't think anyone here has heard of it. It's called Uber. And this guy Travis calls me up on the phone and says, "Hey, I got this new company, and we're looking for capital, and I know you guys are the dominant player." We were doing online scheduled rides for ground transportation, and we had thousands and thousands of drivers throughout the country. I think we had 8,000 drivers in the country, but we were only doing scheduled rides through the web, and we were the only ones doing it. And he called me and said, "I'm going to do on-demand cabs, so I'm not going to really compete with you, but I could really use your expertise and talk to you guys about how to do that." It was called Uber Cab at the time. Mm-hmm. And then I said, "Well, I don't think your idea is going to work." It's only going to work in New York and San Francisco, and cabbies are,
He heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so anyway, I told him no, and, we all know what happened to Uber, and Lemos actually went bankrupt, and a turnaround guy came in, took it over, fixed it, and actually sold it for a little bit of money and did well with it, so. But that was one that I could have done without. That was a painful 8 years.
So you've done a few entrepreneurial ventures. What drove you to decide that now, instead of being a founder and running the company, now you're going to shift focus and create a company that's based on investing in startup founders?
So about 10 years ago, I just started investing as an angel, just writing like small checks, $50,000, $100,000 checks to a bunch of startups in the Valley. And then I ran into a guy that I knew through nonprofits named Jim Armstrong, and we just became friends through some nonprofit stuff we were doing. And he really he was bored. He was retiring from JDA Software, and he's like, I really like doing this. Like, I want to go meet these companies. I want to invest too. Don't leave me out. Don't forget to call me. And eventually we just decided to start a company together and formalize it. And we called it Canal Partners. And we really started it just to invest our own capital. And then over the years, we've started to accept LPs and investors into our company.
Where did the name come from?
Very entrepreneurial, very creative. Where office is on the canal. Yeah. So we looked out the window and said, how about Canal Partners? And we're like, call the attorney, let's book it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you remember what the first deal is that you did?
Well, it was that Lemos.com was the first one, yeah. And, a lot of lessons learned. I mean, the ones that didn't work out were the ones that I think made me a better investor and a better venture capitalist, for sure. The ones where you gave them $2 million and they grew the company from 1 to 50 million in revenue, I didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
And we made a lot of money, and had a lot of high fives, but the ones like Lemos where it was hard and we made a lot of mistakes, those are the ones that I learned the most from. And I think it makes me and my team at Canal a lot better to go through those experiences, for sure.
So do you feel that are you as investors or as an investment team more hands-on with your entrepreneurs, or do you tend to stay kind of back on deals?
It depends. The ones that hit budget every quarter, never need more money, and just crush it, like those are the ones that we're most hands-off on. The ones where it's a train wreck from the minute we invest and we're replacing CEOs, C-level executives, and they need more capital, those are the ones that we're very, very hands-on. And it's hands-on, not so much day-to-day managing the business, it's putting the pieces in place. It's putting the capital structure in place, it's putting the right C-level people in place, the right board in place, trying to get the CEO to focus. A lot of times these CEOs have a lot of ideas, and we're like, okay, you're kind of doing well in this one area, let's stick here for a while, get more customers, sell, get more revenue, and then we can move to the other areas that you're excited about. So I would say the ones that are really struggling, we spend a lot more time with. We have had 3 new CEOs in the last 6 months in our portfolio, and that takes a lot of time. We have to talk to recruiters, we have to interview people, get reference checks, and that just takes an awful lot of time. And then once they get in the chair, when the CEO gets in the chair, then we have to kind of babysit for a little while to make sure it's going well, because we don't want it to blow up. We don't want the employees to revolt, and that's happened before too, where we've hired a CEO, and the whole team will call me and say, we're all quitting tomorrow if this guy shows up. So that's happened before.
Oh, wow.
That was a fun phone call.
How'd you get out of that one?
Well, that particular call, I was in Deer Valley skiing over Christmas, and my co-founder and a couple other employees called me and said, if this guy shows up tomorrow, no one in the whole company's going to show up. So I flew back the next morning. I said, don't worry about it. He's gone. But that was one where I didn't keep my eye on the ball. I didn't check in with the team often and didn't realize what was going on there. And it was to the point where they built such resentment and such hatred towards the CEO that there was no turning back. This guy was not going to stay, and there was no company if he continued.
Wow. All right, well, so kind of like backing it up a little bit, what is Canal Partners Thesis? What types of entrepreneurs and ventures do you invest in?
So we invest in companies, software companies that have $1 million of ARR in Southern California, Arizona, Colorado, and Atlanta. And Atlanta, because we had a partner there for a few years he's no longer a partner. He took a CEO job of a fairly substantial SaaS company. And those are the markets where we have a presence, we have a network, we know a lot of people. We don't fund bank deals. We don't look at any investment banking deals. It's 100% our referral network, which accountants, recruiters, attorneys, other CEOs. The last deal we funded came from another CEO that we have funded before. So it's all relationships. It's all our network, and that's the secret sauce. And we can't do it in the big cities. We can't compete in Boston, San Francisco, New York. We got no shot. So we look for tertiary markets where there's not a ton.
Just name recognition, or?
There's just too much capital. There's too many famous people there. It's just not going to happen. When I see deals from San Francisco, I kind of laugh. I'm like, you couldn't get funded in San Francisco, and you're sending it to me. Obviously they shopped it in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and they didn't get funded. And
so then you're like, why?
Yeah. I'm like the ugly stepchild, trying to see if they can get it funded.
So backing it up, you said sometimes you are more hands-on with the founders that even from the get-go look like the redheaded stepchild. What makes you fund those companies to begin with if you already know they're a mess?
Well, we didn't know they were a mess.
Okay.
So the three founders all had interesting stories, but the three founders, one decided to step down for personal reasons, but he was actually a very good CEO. And he's still with the company. So he just didn't want to be the CEO and work 24/7. It was affecting, I think, his personal life. The other CEO was really a criminal. I mean, he was a criminal and stealing from us. So that's a no-brainer. And the other CEO had personal issues. So none of this we saw going in. And you never know. Because I've learned that it's the opposite of like the judicial system, and you're 100% guilty until proven innocent. So every CEO is guilty until they can prove themselves innocent, and it's all in the results. Everyone's going to do this, do that, hit these numbers, hire this number of employees, and it never goes that way. So for me, it's morals, ethics, and the type of person that you're dealing with, because we don't mind people messing up, but always tell the truth. Don't be afraid to tell us the bad news first before you tell us the good news. CEOs tend to be very promotional, very salesy, and they want to tell you the great news, and they don't want to tell you the bad news. We're their partner. We're their investor. We need to know the bad news as much as we have to know the good news, and that's important.
The sooner they tell you, the sooner you can help them.
Yeah, exactly. If we don't know the problems, we can't assist.
So what are some of the weaving threads that have proven to be within your own most successful founders? Like, what are those characteristics?
Building a really fun culture. The companies that have done really well, you can walk around the office, go to happy hour with these teams, and they are just on a pink cloud. They are walking on water. They love hanging out with each other. They love their job. It's just like a drug. And that's a common thread, I think, in all the successes that we've had. The ones that struggle, you can feel the pain and the tension and the anxiety walking through the office. You tend to have a CEO who's, he or she is very, very stressed. And, so the common thread, I think, is having fun and bringing in employees that are higher quality employees, that everyone wants to be on a winning team. So for instance, like Lemons, when we were trying to hire in San Francisco, and Lemons raised almost $20 million. Other venture firms were in with us. And nobody wanted to work there at the end because you had Lyft and Uber and all these other companies. No one wanted to be on a sinking ship. So we had some great employees, had a great culture. We were crushing it for years. And then all of a sudden, it changed, and our best employees started leaving. Other people started seeing it, and there's nothing you can really do. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is pivot the business. Realize this is not a market. We're not going to win here, so we can pivot the business, which happens all the time. We've invested in companies that business didn't work, but the CEO kept enough money and pivoted the business and created a new business that did work, and that's happened several times.
Have you invested in any companies that have remote employees? And
Most of our companies do have remote employees, or they come in a couple days a week, or a lot of engineers we outsource to overseas or even Mexico. And so, but we like having people in the office. I think it's important to have people in the office, create that culture. A lot of stuff happens at the coffee pod and, lunch, and it just happens in the hallways. And it's important to have the team really get to know each other.
Yeah. For those that do have teams that are remote, what have you seen that's really unique about them trying to pull that culture together? Is it just that they're winning and everyone's excited to be part of it, or are there other elements that you think they bring to the table?
Some people just don't want to work in an office. They just don't want to go into the office. We tend to see it more on the engineers and developers. We've had some engineers and developers that just like to be in a cave at their house or in shared office space, and they just don't want to come in. Or sometimes it's a commute. We've had companies where there's hour and a half commutes for employees, and they say, well, I can come in 3 days a week, but I want to work from home 2 days a week. So part of it's just personal lifestyle, and we want people to be happy. If employees are happy and they're feeling good about themselves, they want to work hard, and you got to give them some leeway. You got to give the employees leeway.
Cool. So your venture firm is very unique. Well, it's not very unique, but it's unique in the sense that you don't have an actual fund that you've raised. Can you kind of share with everyone how your model works with how you fund startups?
Yes. So most venture capital firms are run by general partners or managing partners that have less than 5% of the fund that they own themselves. And a lot of venture capital funds don't have former entrepreneurs running them. They're former bankers, investment bankers, finance analysts, and we're kind of the opposite. Like Jim and I were entrepreneurs our whole lives, and we know what it takes to win, and we know what it takes to fail, and it's mostly our money. We're 65% of all the capital we've put to work has been his family and my family. So we're the majority of the capital. So we really did this initially just to invest our own capital, and then we've had some success and some wins, and other people asked if they can invest, and we said absolutely. So we created a vehicle for that to happen. But the other disadvantage of having a fund is you're forced to do bad deals. So if you have a fund, you have to put that money to work. And as it gets more competitive and more toppy, like it kind of is now, you have to put that money to work, or you have to return it to the investors, which in my career I've seen very few times where venture capital funds or private equity funds are actually sending money back because they couldn't put it to work. So they put money to work, but you start changing your boundaries of what you typically do. You're investing in things that may not have $1 million of ARR. You're investing in things that maybe it's a device company where you said you weren't going to do a device company. And you start, bending the rules that the fund was based on, and we just don't want to do that. So we might go a whole year without doing an investment, or we might do 4 or 5 investments in 1 year. But we're opportunistic and can do them based on our structure. Yeah. We're a fund, you're putting that money to work no matter what.
That's super unique. So I think that's a really cool model. So tell us a little bit about what are some ways that, I don't know, what is a company that you are really excited about right now?
One of our companies,
yeah.
or the last one we funded, which was early summer, we funded a company in San Diego called Pet Desk. And it's really marketing automation software for the veterinarians. And this guy is a former biophysicist, Taylor, the CEO and founder, and started this company. And now he's got 60 employees, 1,000 vets using it. And you walk in this office in San Diego overlooking the water, but it's actually not a nice office, but it overlooks the ocean. And you feel the energy. The average the average age in his company is probably 26, 26.
Wow.
So it's like, you just feel that energy. You feel it, the creativity in there, it's awesome. And super excited about the market, that the vet space is consolidating very quickly. You have the 3 mafia companies that own the space, like Mars and Henry Schein, and you got these multi-billion-dollar companies that own it, and then you got entrepreneurs like Taylor that are coming in with really cool products and disrupting the market. So we compete against the 3, the big mafia, and we win every day because we have better technology, we have more passion. We've taught our employees to actually have conversations with these vets and office employees, and they can't beat us even though they have billions of dollars under them. And that's really fun to see, disrupting a market where your competition has a lot more money and a lot more firepower than you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you decide to start the fund in Arizona, of all places?
Because we live here, and Jim and I are too lazy to travel. We traveled for a while, but when he sold his plane, I said, we're done traveling. We're not going to travel anymore. So we really just like it here. We live here. We don't really want to travel. Our motto before was, we'll travel if it's an hour flight or less. So we were going to San Diego, Colorado. We actually went to Vegas and Albuquerque a few times to look at deals, but really now we've kind of set our mark because of the success we had in Atlanta. We've had 5 companies in Atlanta and sold all 5, and all 5 were successful exits. And then we have a few in San Diego, well, 2 in San Diego. We're looking at a 3rd right now, and we like going to San Diego. So we just try to go to markets where you don't have a lot of venture money on that $1 million ARR, annual recurring revenue, and you don't have a ton of angel groups, because it's important that in the Bay Area, for $0 to $1 million in revenue, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that will fund that. I mean, literally hundreds, if not thousands. In Phoenix, San Diego, and Atlanta, I can name all of them that we would compete with, and there's not very many of them. So we just try to go to markets where we can win. We don't want to go to markets where we can't win. New York, San Francisco, Boston, no chance. We got no chance. Even LA is super competitive.
So other than being in $1 million of annual recurring revenue, what is another way that a founder would prepare their company to look appetizing for your firm?
I think picking a market where they can win. A lot of times, like, we see a lot of deals that don't fit our box, but then I ask the founder, why you think you can win here? And they'll give me an answer, but I don't think they've done their research and the market analysis to realize that this is a very difficult market, and look who you're competing against. So we don't do consumer deals, and we don't do deals where you're competing against companies that already have an established solution in the market that's kind of latest and greatest. Like WebPT, which I'm sure all you guys know. I mean, what we loved about WebPT was it was a small vertical, and a lot of venture capitalists won't go after small verticals, and or market is another word for it. And they were competing against Excel, pen and paper, and old software. It was probably written on DOS or FoxPro for any of you folks that know those old languages. And we knew we can win. We knew we can win there. And even though it was a small company when we funded it, we're like, we have a kick-ass solution that's SaaS, that's recurring, and our competition is pen and paper, Excel, or old software that you got to pay a bunch of money up front, and you got to pay every year maintenance, fees, and we knew we can win there. But we don't mind small markets. We enjoy small markets. The vet software space we're in is probably a $200 million market, and he talked to some other venture folks before us. They said, no, the market's too small. But we don't need to build a $100 million revenue company. If we can go from 1 to 10 or 2 to 20, we're all very happy. We're all very happy.
Cool. So another really cool part about you is you sit on a number of boards. There's a lot of things to learn from that. What are some of the things that you can advise to founders when they're choosing a board? What are the things that they should look for in someone in that seat?
I think it's important to find board members that are going to make you very uncomfortable and make your life hard. You know, a lot of people tend to invite their friends as board members and people that like are yes people. They're going to say, oh yes, great idea, great idea. You want people that are going to challenge you. You want people that are going to hold you accountable. You want people that are going to really make your life tough. And I think most founders and CEOs don't do that. They want a lot of yes people around them because they want praise, they don't want conflict. But to me, those aren't good board members. You know, we had a board meeting today for one of our companies, and we have a board member from Atlanta that's one of our venture partners, and he is throwing arrows and challenging the CEO and the company, and that's how you grow, because CEOs don't always know the answer, and smart people around the table helps. Plus, if you find the right people on the board, you want people that can help bring finance, capital to the board or to the company. So you want people that have access to capital. You want someone that is really strong in accounting. I think it's really important that you have a CPA or someone like a CPA on the board, and people that are going to hold board meetings properly. Because until you get funded, you may not have an attorney at the board meeting running the board meeting like they're supposed to, taking minutes, making sure they're in the bylaws, making sure you have D&O insurance. A lot of that stuff doesn't happen before you get funded. So I think the more you act like a company that's been funded and is much bigger, the quicker you'll get there. The quicker you'll get there.
So what makes an effective board meeting? What are the ones where you think gets the most stuff done?
You got to have an agenda. You got to stick to it. You got to have a proper board deck that everybody sees before the board meeting so they can develop their questions and digest the material before the board meeting. We always have our attorney present at the board meeting, and we try to limit the board meeting from the board deck to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours max, and then save the rest for strategic type stuff, raising capital, new markets, acquisitions, employee layoffs if we're at that stage, whatever is going on at the company. So we try to save that for the end. But it's important for the CEO to keep the board meetings on track. Because a lot of times you'll have people with ADD or ADHD, if anyone knows what that is, and they're not on Adderall or anything, they'll get off track. They'll start asking questions that are way off base, and it'll take the whole meeting in a different direction. And a lot of people are afraid to say, okay, let's save that or table that, and they'll immediately disrupt the whole board meeting. And I've seen that a bunch, and no one will say anything. Everyone's like, geez, where's this person going with this? But if you stay on track, stick to the agenda, stick to the board deck, and then save all that other stuff for the end, I find that's way more effective. But it's also accountability, because you always have the to-dos at the board meeting. I mean, today we had probably 20 to-dos, but if you don't give someone that responsibility, okay, this is on your card, this is on your card, it doesn't get done and follow up. So you got to have people that are going to follow up, and a lot of it's introductions. We're always giving referrals. Board members tend to give a lot of referrals for customers. So following up with those referrals, making sure those introductions are made. If it's capital, making sure the capital is introduced or at least coming up with like an investor deck to give to the potential investors. So boards could be huge assets, or they could really be sort of benign and not really be effective at all.
All right. So what do you get out of being why do you want to take a board seat? What are you driven to do when you take a board seat?
Well, I have to be on the board because we're fiduciaries to our investors and our capital. But I like it because a lot of it's coaching. I would say half of my board experience has been playing counselor to board members. To the founders. We've had a lot of co-founders in our companies we funded, 2 or 3 individuals. And a lot of times they will call me separately and say, this person is the biggest idiot in the world. I can't stand this person. And a lot of times it's counseling. We had a co-founder in Atlanta and a co-founder in Israel. And I would get calls from both of them the same day complaining, pointing the finger at the other person. I can't work with Corin. I can't work with John. He's impossible. And you're literally sitting there and playing counselor. Okay, well, let's look at what's your part in this? Let's forget about him. We know he's crazy. But let's look at what can you do to make this situation better? And it's really just playing counselor. And we've diffused a lot of blow-up situations because a lot of times those those 2 or 3 co-founders can't leave. The company at an early stage, if the co-founder leaves, might as well shut the doors. Like if Corin left in Israel, forget it, it's over. And if John left, same thing in Atlanta. So you got to keep the team together. So that's one big thing I get out of being a board member. And then the other thing is the strategic planning, the entrepreneurial spirit. Like, where do we take this company? What do we do? Do we do acquisitions? Do we create new products? What else can we sell to our existing customers? And what else how can we get new customers to buy other stuff? So it's constantly creating new products and new customers and how to do that,
Cool. All right. Well, we're almost about to go into Q&A. We have 21 questions, rapid fire. Kelly, I didn't tell you this ahead of time. Can you be our Q&A mic runner, by the way? Mic's right here. Yeah. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Sushi or tacos?
Sushi.
Favorite app?
Favorite app?
App, yeah.
I hate to say it, Uber.
Well, they won you over, I guess, huh? Favorite OS?
The latest Apple operating system.
Love it. Favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday?
Yeah.
Spring break. Is that a holiday?
Yeah. Holidays are what you make them, I guess. Your favorite car?
Favorite car? Ferrari.
All right. Favorite vacation spot?
Laguna Beach.
Favorite book?
Catcher in the Rye.
Favorite movie or TV show?
Forrest Gump.
Favorite musical artist?
Led Zeppelin.
Your go-to karaoke song?
Sweet Caroline, Neil Diamond.
Yes. Anything you collect?
Well, now I collect shoes, tennis sneakers.
Love it. What types of, just tennis shoes?
Tennis shoes.
What's your favorite, splurge that you made on shoes?
Gucci, any Air Jordans.
I love it.
Yeah, anything Nike, Adidas, Gucci.
Any unusual skills or talents?
Besides being a former amateur breakdancer, I do yoga 5 days. I do yoga 5 days a week, and I played a little bit of college tennis.
Yeah, I wish you wouldn't have come all buttoned up. I would have had you do your breakdance moves right out in front of everyone just to prove it. What's your top strength in business?
I think not reacting, not reacting, and digesting information before I come up with a solution.
What was your first job?
Busboy at Mountain Shadows.
What profession other than your own would you attempt?
I would like to be. I would be a counselor, psychologist, counselor. I think that'd be fun.
Yep, and I think you're already doing it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the best compliment someone can give you?
You're not an asshole.
All right. That's a good day. That's a good day. What's a cause you're passionate about?
What cause or passion? Mm-hmm. Kids, on nonprofits, I would say kids, either kids that have an illness or learning difference, and supporting Israel is important.
All right. Who are 5 people alive or dead you'd want to have dinner with?
Oh, I don't know. Madonna, Princess Di, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Einstein, Dalai Lama, Tony Robbins.
Well, there's 6 right there.
Yeah.
I love it. What's one thing on your bucket list?
Probably living in a foreign country, an obscure foreign country for a year, someplace where I don't speak the language, that's isolated, somewhere.
Any particular country in mind, or?
No, maybe somewhere in Africa or East Asia, somewhere.
All right, cool. All right, now it's time for Q&A. Right there.
All right, so I know you're running your own fund. evaluation process, how much emphasis do you put on soft skills like emotional intelligence?
I mean, that's kind of inherited within each company that we fund. I mean, we would expect that. But because our companies have $1 million of ARR, so it's hard to put a true value. $1 million in revenue, it's like we call ourselves single-digit valuation investors, which means we don't go above 10. Excuse me. Even though the last 2 deals we did, we went slightly over 10. Like Pet Desk, we were at 12, but they were at $3 million of recurring revenue at the time. So I would say that just goes without saying. Like they have to have a lot of soft skills and within the business. And
I guess I would ask if you have a way to screen for it while you're looking at these companies.
okay, can you like define like what kind of soft skills you're?
So I know that I'm just starting pitch rounds, right? And my background is in corporate leadership, and we put a very large emphasis on any leader moving forward on emotional intelligence. And I'm just wondering if that's going to carry over as something people are going to evaluate.
Yeah, I don't know if you get a bonus for that in the valuation, but I don't think you'll get funding unless someone expects you to have emotional intelligence and leadership skills. I know we wouldn't fund someone that we didn't think was an all-star in all aspects of being a CEO. So I think that goes without saying. I think the increase in valuation from my perspective is shown in identifying the market, the hole in the market, identifying how you can win against your competitors, identifying, like in your case, you have a secret sauce with tea and energy, which, I love taking guarana, but I also love caffeine. It's identifying how you're going to go to market, how you're going to win, and really spending the focus there instead of talking about how much emotional intelligence you might have or leadership skills. I think it's getting them excited that there's a hole in the market and here's how you're going to win, and we are winning type of thing.
What's your best exit so far?
The best exit so far in Canal Partners, I've had some individually that might be larger, but in Canal Partners, I would say it's either WebPT or CallRail are the two. As far as IRR, it was net time because we didn't bring in investors in. The investors were only in for 1 year there. So from the investor standpoint, it was net time. But from a dollar standpoint, it was probably WebPT or CallRail. WebPT was $800,000 in revenue when we invested, and they're much larger than that today. And CallRail was $2 million in revenue, and now they're $25 million in revenue. So.
Is a pre-revenue startup able to raise a sense of capital from angels or venture capitalists in Phoenix?
Absolutely.
Where do those sources come from?
Well, it depends on what type of business you're in. There is a company that I'm actually personally invested in Tucson called Vector Systems. They actually made the news today on CNN and CNBC. They're sending rockets to space for 1/20th the cost of what SpaceX is doing. They have zero revenue today, and they will have zero revenue next year, and they've raised $25 million. Medical device, very easy to raise money pre-revenue. So I don't know your business, but if it's software, it can be done. It's a little harder than some of those other areas I described, but it can be done if I think you have an MVP. If you have an MVP and you have a pretty solid team and a good market, you can absolutely raise capital pre-revenue in this town. There's ATI, there's angel groups, there's folks like us that will invest personally. So we've invested personally in a half dozen to a dozen companies that are pre-revenue or real close to pre-revenue.
Can you give an idea of what kind of ownership percentage you take of, say, your $1 million company? And I assume that company is EBITDA positive. They're making $1 million in revenue. Can you just talk about what you offer in terms of ownership percentage?
So we encourage all of our companies to lose money or break even. So EBITDA doesn't exist in our world. We sometimes have a hard time getting the CEO to agree to that, because some CEOs sleep better at night knowing they're making money. But when you sell, at least in the software world, when you sell a software company, you don't get paid on EBITDA. You get paid on growth. The KPIs are growth, revenue, retention. So they don't even look at EBITDA, unless you're much, much bigger. But in our world, sort of 2 to 20 million of revenue, they're looking at those KPIs, not EBITDA. And as far as valuation and how much of the company we take, one of the other things that we encourage, and it's kind of we're known for, is one and done. And one and done is like you take Canal's money and you're done raising venture capital. Because the theme in the Bay Area and in New York is take a lot of venture capital money and grow a big, big, big company and sell it for $1 billion. And that's not our motto. Our motto is we can give you $2 to $3, $4 million and you can grow a really nice company and we could sell it for $50 million. If you raise $20 or $30 million, you can't even sell it for $50 million if you wanted to. The investors would never let you. So it takes your exit, I call it moving the bar. It takes the bar from you're able to sell it for $50 million to now $100 million to now $200 million. So once you raise a bunch of money, you've just raised that bar. And every time you raise that bar, you limit the potential buyers in your company. You know, once Uber and all these companies raise billions of dollars, they have no chance to win unless they grow their way out of it. So the guy who actually funded Uber, this guy Bill Gurley, I was on the phone with him talking to him about Uber, and he's like, why don't you just build limos into like a $15, $20 million company and sell it for like $60 million? And he started telling me the stats of how many companies sell for over $100 million. And it was, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 5% of all M&A in technology is over $100 million. So that means 95% of all transactions are below $100 million. And if you're going to sell it for below $100 million, you can't raise that much money, because there's a formula that venture capitalists use. And if you raise $20, $30 million, you've blown past that $100 million already. So you got to be really careful. And you know, that's why we say one and done. It's like take 1 to 3 million, maybe you get some bank debt, maybe you get a little bit more capital, but we want the owners to own a very large piece of the company when they go to sell it. And the more capital you raise, the less percentage you're going to own as a founder.
How has your investment process changed since you were investing individually and now where you obviously work with a team?
Wait, can you say that again? There was too much echo.
How has your investment process changed since before when you were making individual investments to now where you're running a firm?
So I think when I was an angel.
Individual versus team, yeah.
So when I was an angel investor, before Canal Partners, I would invest in anything. It didn't have to be software or tech. We do invest, Jim and I do invest personally in stuff outside of Canal. That, like I invested in vector systems through ATI. I'm a member of the Arizona Technology Investors. So I invested through ATI there. So I'll invest in stuff that doesn't fit the Canal box. If it competes with Canal, we won't invest personally. But if it doesn't compete with Canal, we can invest in anything we want. And Jim does a lot of that. I do a little bit of that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you know, we like to take small gambles. And it's also another way in the venture world, you call it getting a seat at the table. So if we invest in, there's a bunch of local companies that were pre-revenue that we invested in. If we invest a little bit of money there and it turns out that it works and they grow a nice company, we usually have a pretty decent shot at getting the A round of funding. And because we have the relationship, we've already got money in the company. So we've done that several times. And you know, if it works out, we usually get the chance to fund it through Canal.
What motivates you every day? Good job.
What gets me up in the morning? My wife. I just love what I do. I just love what I do. I love my partners. I love coming into my office. It's very unstructured. It's very creative. Every day it's a different thing. Every day it's something completely different. I love talking to my investors. I love talking to the board members. I even love difficult situations. We have a company now that's really struggling, 30 employees, and I love trying to figure out ways out of the box. Like, how can we figure ways out of the box? So I think unstructured, creative, and love the people I work with gets me out of bed every day. And then yoga helps too.
Mm-hmm. All right, anyone else?
Who inspires you most, Todd, and where do you go for guidance?
Besides Alexa, I think my family inspires me. My mom, dad, my wife, my kids, my 2 dogs, Marcel and Gigi. I get a lot of inspiration, I think, from my family, and I get a lot of inspiration from people I don't work with. So friends that I have no business connection with, and I think taking time away from business. When I get too wound up at the office or in a situation in business, and I don't give that situation time to breathe, I'll never be able to see it clearly. So I need to go do yoga, go meditate, get away from the situation for a while, and then come back to it, and then I can help solve that problem. So I think that's what inspires me.
Cool. All right. Okay, one more. This will be the last question.
The hipster.
You mentioned that one of your key skills is not being very reactive to situations, but kind of digesting the information. Is that something you just always naturally been good at, or do you have techniques you use to go over time? Books, anything like that?
No, it's trial by error. I was the opposite for many years. I'd react based on emotion and make immediate decisions, and they were most of the time the wrong decisions. So I've learned from actually my partner, who's a little bit older than me, and from failing, that you always got to let stuff breathe. As my partner says, let's sleep on it for a couple days before we make that decision. So that a couple days usually doesn't change the world and the problem or the situation that's going on. And I always find we come back with different sets of eyes when we look at those situations. And I would say the first 10, 15 years of my career, it was the opposite. It was just make immediate decisions and try to, because I wanted immediate gratification. I wanted to make a decision, immediate gratification, and I was usually highly emotional making that decision, and usually it was wrong.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thanks, Christina. That was fun.